Thanks for joining in, Ava. Uh, Let me just introduce you first to our audience. Firstly, you are Inc.'s top 250 female founders. You are also the board member of Forbes 30 under 30. You are also a member of Forbes HR Council, and you also run Symba. You are the CEO of Symba, right? So that's something that I found out on your LinkedIn, and I just wanted to introduce you because I want to make it clear that you know your stuff related to human resources and hiring people and how to hire people, right? So let's just get into it. Tell us a bit about yourself. We'll get into your origin story as well, but give us a brief intro first.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for having me on the show. I've watched a few of your episodes with some big names, so very excited to be here.
Thank
And
you.
forgive my voice. We've had a record number of sales demos and calls this week, so I'm right at that edge, but
Which is a
excited
good
to
problem to
power
have.
through. It's a good problem, yes. A
Yeah.
lot of great conversations, and it makes me wonder: am I doing too much of the talking? But a lot of great meetings. I've been very fortunate to have a lot of great pipeline. So I'm Ava, as you mentioned. I'm the co-founder of Symba, and we are Symba not for the Lion King, but for symbiotic relationships.
Yeah.
And we started building Symba back in 2018, and the vision was to empower new hires. My co-founder and I, we had done a dozen internships and we had joined the workforce officially from college, and every experience was kind of a mess. We didn't know what day one would look like. Getting our laptops was confusing. Which mailing address, who was our manager, where do we show up? What does the experience really look like? And we thought the workforce is becoming more and more dynamic. How do we empower people from beginning
Mm,
and
mm,
actually support people from the pre-onboarding journey? So that's
mm.
really what we've become obsessed with. We've made a number of pivots, expansions, and growth with our customers. We work with big names that you probably know, like CVS Health, Netflix. So we've been very, very fortunate. And I'm happy to share more about my journey, all the ups, downs, learnings, everything.
Perfect. So let's get into the ups and downs at the beginning. But let's start from your origin story. Like, how did you get into starting Simba? Like, why did this idea came up? Because you went into an internship, and your onboarding process for the internship that you did was a nightmare, right? It was not clear at all. So how did you guys like think? Okay, we'll do this and we'll create a product around it.
Great question. So, to be very, very transparent, it actually started with my first ever remote internship, and that was in 2011. So,
Hmm.
Kushal, like you probably imagine, like back in 2011, that remote internship was a crazy concept. Like, internship, it was like, no, must be in person, must be in the
Yes.
summer, must look like this, and it was so traditional. They didn't
Yeah.
want to change and reimagine it. So when
Was
I
it in
was a remote
Skype?
intern at State Department,
Was it on
we
Skype?
did use Skype, which is so crazy. Yeah, we
Yeah.
used Skype. I had to get a Skype account just to do my interview, which
Yeah.
was
I
so
sometimes
crazy.
think
Yeah,
Skype dropped the ball on COVID. Like, because on COVID they could have like gotten so big, but Zoom like took over and became that one of those main platforms, and then Google Meet also came. So these are the two main ones right now, right?
yeah. It's so crazy because actually my dad asked me recently to set up a Skype account for him for something to do internationally. And I was like, Skype?
Why?
It's
Why?
crazy. Yeah. Like you think about these things like why did Skype or MySpace or some of these things just like not take off?
Yeah.
But basically that experience was so fragmented. And the craziest thing happened. I remember day one, I showed up, but I was an hour late because I was in Arizona, and
Hmm.
Arizona doesn't do daylight savings.
Ah.
So the
Okay.
time they told me, I was right. I was there at the right time, but our state hadn't changed with
Hmm.
DC.
Hmm.
So I was late. And that shame, that feeling of like, I've already made a mistake at the age of like 19 was like overbearing. I was like, I never wanted to feel that way again. But really, it wasn't in my control. And I noticed there was a number of things that kept happening along the journey. And I was in a cohort of about 30 interns that were all selected remotely. And I hadn't met any single individual until I started working there full time. So we went back to State Department and we said, now that, they scaled their program from 30 interns to 5,000, we said, why don't we build a technology around this? This concept is so cool. It can really level the playing field, create access, but it's really, fragmented. It's all done through email. There's no process around it. I was actually ghosted by my manager halfway through. So we kind of started there and they were down to do a pilot with us. So we did a pilot before even leaving our full-time jobs to actually pursue Symba full-time.
Got it. So you guys did those pilot jobs and then you pursued Symba. Like, how did you get started? Did you had initially have the idea of creating this as a software platform, or was it like a service in the beginning? How did you guys begin there?
It was always going to be a software platform.
Okay.
And it's interesting because I've had a few folks ask me recently, because my background is not in engineering.
Yeah.
Before building Symba, I was studying economics, but I am very passionate about workforce development and econ, in the sense of like, why do we behave the way we do? Why do we work the way we do? But that was a very, very interesting approach, because technology for me enables you to create so much more of an impact than a services-based organization, right? Services-based organization, you can only help as many people as you have. It's not scalable. Technology can be crazy scalable. So we wanted to go for impact. And I think one of my frustrations working in the public sector, especially early in my career, I was like ready to go, right? You have this energy when you join the workforce, you're like, I want to change things. I want to make the world better. And I was met with so much bureaucracy to do anything. Like I felt like I had to get so much approval to even like write a brief or a memo. And with Symba, I could do things without asking anybody. I could run and, implement. Really, I just had to get buy-in to set up the technology. So that's why I was really excited about being into a space that also could match my pace of energy and disruption.
Got it. Which helps the company to make the employees productive and also makes you productive as well, and not like get stuck in this whole like bureaucracy on I want to ask other people on what I need to do, and then for each task it wastes too much time. It is a drag, and then you feel that you're not moving in your career as well. So all of this creates like different friction around it.
I totally agree. And just to double tap on that, also like when you have enough users on your platform, that's like the coolest thing, because when we first started, we have arguments, co-founder arguments that are very good, but you're like, it should be this way or it should be that way. But you don't have actual data. And now when you have a lot of users, you make one little tweak in the platform. You make one little adjustment to a feature just to see user behavior. And now you have the data, but at scale. Because, okay, well, we changed this and now 1,000 users did this much faster, or they clicked this button. And so now you also can understand the impact of your work with real tangible results and very quickly. Whereas a services-based organization, a lot more qualitative insights and probably takes a lot longer to make changes and pivot and adjust and see the impact.
Which is true, right? And at the same time, like being a software business, you ship out different features and sometimes you roll back certain features because they aren't either working at scale when there are a lot of people, or they are not like useful for the people. So sometimes you like take back some certain features, right? And it makes sense. So being software, you can change things much quicker and you can help people do their jobs much faster. So which is a good thing. So with the Symba, do you guys only help with the internships or any kind of like jobs or employees who want to onboard?
Great question. So we started off with internships. That was like our focal area. And it was really, the stage we were at, really close to our heart, an area we were passionate about. However, our customers have pulled us along with them. When, you're a founder and you get your foot in the door, you always have to have your ears wide open. What other problems can I solve? What other areas can I hopefully land and expand? So our customers said, can we start using Symba to support rotational programs, apprenticeships? My co-founder and I and our team, of course we can. And then we got asked, can we use Symba to support our part-time workers or our contractors or, now our full-time hires? So we've been growing naturally and organically with our customers. And that's kind of our strategy. Get in, produce an impact, show results, and then build that trust and continue to learn and grow. So we've expanded, but it's important, I think, at the beginning stages that, you stay in your lane, because we were able to infiltrate without very many competitors focused on early careers.
Great. So, and do you feel like this is sort of a process that every founder who is trying to build any product, like mostly a software product, because that's what you can sell, but any sort of product, this is the sort of process that they should follow to also iterate on their product. So they find like they find a product market fit, they find that they are useful to a certain set of customer, a segment of their users, and then they find out that this particular segment wants these features more, and then they keep adding onto that, right? So do you think that's the way to go for most founders when they're building stuff initially?
I mean, as a general framework, yes, but obviously it depends, right? Because if you say if they found product market fit, right, it's, I guess you have to assess the market. You
Hmm.
can solve a problem for a market that has no money or
Yeah.
no like urgency to buy
Yeah.
or budget. You need to make sure that the market as well is a good, healthy market that can be
Yeah.
sustainable. And if not, what is your strategy to grow beyond that? Because maybe, and this is important to talk about too, Kushal, because when we talk about startups, we're always assuming that because a business and a startup are very different, right? If you want to
Yeah.
start up, you want to scale fast, you want to grow
Yeah.
fast. But if you want a healthy business, that is totally fine and that's great. But just be very real with yourself. What is your approach? Are you
Yeah.
building, a company that you're going to be 20 million in revenue and be very happy, have a great team, have a great organization, great life? Maybe acquisition comes along in the future, you're open to it. Or are you building something that's like a unicorn? And so those are
Hmm.
completely different approaches. I think it's
True.
really important for people to kind of be real with themselves and also assess the actual market and assess how volatile is that market. Is
Yeah.
this market a good market right now? Because we've already seen a boom and a bust cycle in my life, the cycle
Yeah.
of a startup. So is
Yeah.
this prone to recession, or is this a recession-proof market as well? So don't just study the heat of the moment. You need to study like the last like decade, really, or the last, even if you can, 100 years, depending on how long your
Yeah.
industry's been alive.
That is great piece of advice for anyone like building product and even like deciding on what market to build this particular product for, right? Because your product can sometimes be great, but you could be like going after a wrong market. They might not have the right kind of money, they might not be recession proof, like there could be 1,000 other problems and you won't see it because you feel that your product is great, right? Sometimes founders can be too obsessive about their product and not think about like what is the right market, what to build for them sometimes.
And what is the right problem, right? Like,
Yeah.
I know that so many founders want to do their product because I get it. Like, it's your baby. You work so hard to like, isn't it beautiful? And let me tell you, if you're the founder, most people will tell you it's beautiful because they don't want to hurt your feelings.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
willing to take a meeting with you because they love to get inspired by entrepreneurs. But you have to dig deeper and really understand, is this person willing to pay at least a cup of coffee for this?
Yeah.
Maybe they say they'll try it out, but are they really going to even spend $5? Like, you have to understand willingness to pay. And you also, I think one thing that helped us was we brought on amazing advisors who
Hmm.
actually eventually turned into angel investors and really bought into the mission. But they were executive advisors who had a pulse on the market and the ability to pay. Because sometimes you might sell your product to folks in your industry who might be early managers or users, but they don't
Hmm.
even have decision making power. So they
Yeah.
might say yes, they love your product and want to use your product, but they don't even have the ability to buy. So
Yeah.
all of these things are really critical. How can you peel back the layers and avoid these happy ears? Because as a founder, you are craving validation.
Yeah.
So it's really, really hard.
I agree with that. And the thing that you talked about, like people don't want to hurt your feelings, right? Because you built your product, and you sometimes when you're building a product and you're talking about it, people can see that excitement in your face, in your eyes, right? And they'll be like, I don't want to
Of
like
course.
put that person down, right? They'll be like, yeah, good, great product, right? But at the end of the day, if they're not willing to pay for it, and if they are not the one who is making that decision on if they can pay for it or not, then it's not a right way to go about it. You should only talk to decision makers who could understand what problem you're solving, and that's the problem that they have, and they would be willing to pay to solve it, right? Perfect.
Exactly.
So let's talk about A players, because this podcast is about scaling businesses, growing businesses, right? So I feel with any business, at a certain point, you have to decide that you need A players in your corner, in your business, and only then you would grow. Because you as a founder could be like really good at everything, but at the same time then you can't scale it, right? Because there's too much stuff to do, right? And you need people who are in your corner, who have expertise in certain departments that you have within your company, and they could scale the product beyond you, right? So what do you think is required to hire these kind of A players?
Well, money. I would say, obviously.
That's true, that's true.
Yeah, they usually like money because, equity in your concept, it's just an
Yeah,
idea. But to be very honest, right, being able to build a team is the first way to validate, are you building something great? Because not only do you need to inspire customers to buy or investors to give you money, you have to inspire people to leave their comfortable job with great equity to join your mission. And hopefully, when I think of an A player, they are smarter than you. They have more experience than you, especially, my
yeah,
co-founder and I, we were 24, 23 when we started our business. Like they have this expertise. So it's really, really important to think about, how do you maybe not think about going full-fledged as a W-2 person, but maybe as an advisor, maybe as like a mentor, maybe as like, saying, I'd love for you to part-time consult because you can't maybe afford them. And they could maybe get excited about your organization. And also during that relationship, you can learn, are they a good fit? I
yeah,
know they have this great experience, but like, do they actually help us grow, drive forward? Did we close more deals? Did we, improve, our operational costs? Like, what was the actual impact of the business during this relationship? I
yeah.
really encourage founders, you don't always need to go 0 to 1. When a
Mm,
customer says they want a product or a feature add-on, can you build it in a scrappy way before you fully build it out? Because folks say they want a certain thing, right? In the
yeah.
same way as hiring, you only have so many limited resources. So if you bring on an individual who is not an A player, that can really detract from the success of your business. They say over a quarter of startups die because of team issues. And
Mm,
so it's really important that you take care of that culture, take care of your energy and time. And so you can invest maybe 5 hours a week, 10 hours a
mm,
week. And then you can also do contract to hire relationships where
mm,
you do like the first 3 months and you have milestones and goals that this individual needs to reach. So it's very, very important that you understand before you even bring them on, what are the gaps they're going to fill? And if they fill those gaps, what are the impacts to our business? Because everything should be measurable. And you can even build a model out of this so that you can use that model to take it to your investors to say, we need these 2 people because hiring these 2 people are going to increase our revenues by this. That's basically
mm.
how we raised our first round of venture capital. I showed a whole
Oh,
model. I need this AE, I need these SDRs, I need these folks, because all of this is going to drive this revenue. And for every 8 account, I need this customer success person and I need 1.2 engineers. So
mm.
everything is really math at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. I agree. I feel like either you can solve most business problem either with math or testing. That's all. Like you don't need much of it. People like try to guess a lot of stuff, but you can sort of solve anything with maths or testing stuff, right? And I agree with the
Guessing is important. It is a hypothesis, I would say. You need
yeah,
to make many guesses at the same time, all these
yeah.
assumptions, and test them using mathematics.
Exactly, exactly. And I agree with the part that like finding people, even though sometimes people can be A players, sometimes they won't be good for your company because either they are not at the right you are not at the right stage, and they have expertise of handling a company which is like $5 million or plus, right? And you are just starting out, you are an early stage company, so they can be a player at a bigger level field, but they are not the right person sometimes for you at that particular stage. So as a founder you also need to navigate that as well.
Absolutely. Yes. I
Yeah,
think that's so true.
yeah. So let's talk about culture as well, a bit double down on that, because I feel like every company sometimes when you start hiring people, and initially like it's great, there's only 5 6 people and you're like, okay, this is like a small team, we are all working together, trying to build something, and the culture is great, right? People are energetic all the time, but as you start scaling, like hiring 15 20 25 30 people, the culture starts getting diluted, and if you don't manage the culture well, then like things can get very distorted, right? And you don't have control over anything, you don't understand what people level 2 or level 3 down below you these kind of people are doing. So how can a founder manage this, and how can they keep their culture alive? at the same, as they keep growing, as they keep hiring?
That's a really great question. Can I ask you when you say culture, what does culture mean to you?
To me, culture is like, there's a mission the company has, and the employees of that company, they are trying to achieve that particular mission. And I feel a culture is something that helps those employees give a set of guidelines or rules on how to achieve that mission, or like sort of a motivation, or a direction in a way, right? Like you have a compass, and it's sort of a compass on where you need to go, in a way, right? So we don't do
Yes.
this within this company, we talk this way with our customers, something like that, right? If that makes sense.
Yes. So I will say at the beginning days when you're at that 6-person group, and I asked that question because everybody has a different take on culture. And it's
Yeah.
important that you think about culture. But I would also argue that, ultimately, when you talked about mission and vision, those are the things that are the North Star. And
Hmm.
if there's clarity, transparency, understanding of the impact that you're making, and there's a purpose, then you're inspired to work. Maybe you'll work extra late hours. Maybe you
Hmm.
are going to go above and beyond because ultimately at a startup, you really don't have all the right resources.
Yeah.
There's a movie I just watched. It's an old movie. I think it's bobsledding in it was like in a cold in Alaska or something, bobsledding. But the team was not used to this. They're not they I think they're from Jamaica. They were
Hmm.
not used to this environment. It was kind of wild. They didn't have all the resources. That's kind of the reality with startups, that you don't have all the resources, you don't have all the money, but you have the passion and the drive, and you have the ability to move really fast. So
Hmm.
I think you really, because of that, you do have a leg up to a lot
Hmm.
of large businesses who like can't release things because they have so many customers and critical information. They have to go through levels of approval with legal
Yeah.
to release something. So I think that really making sure everyone knows that mission, that purpose, and they're bought in and they know that their work is driving that forward. If you don't see the impact of your work driving that mission forward, then obviously you lose interest. There's
Hmm.
apathy. And so I think good, healthy quarterly reviews, good, healthy communication, and also I think very good dialogue that dissents when this isn't it, this isn't good,
Yeah.
right? We don't need to coat anybody's ego. We don't have time to waste. My co-founder and I are very direct. We don't have
Hmm.
time to beat around the bush. We're like, I disagree and here's why. And it's not
Hmm.
personal. We're all
Yeah.
here to win together, and we just need to, share our thoughts and move forward as fast as we can to make the right decision.
That's a great way to think about it. And even
That's
when you are just starting out, yeah, yeah. And when it's a startup, like I don't know if you've heard this metaphor, but I don't remember who said it. But startups initially is like you being dropped into a forest, and you have a machete, and you're hacking through the jungle, right? And you're just cutting grass and trees and trying to path your ways. And eventually, when you have a few employees, they also have that machete, and you're trying, you don't have enough resources, as you said, right? So you're just trying to go somewhere, trying to find your own way, path, some by at one step at a time. And you need people like that, at least initially, starting out. When you have good resources, you can have like machines trying to like cutting the entire forest and finding that way. But when you're just starting out, you need people who can uh, listen to feedback, even if it hurts their feelings, I guess. And then do the job eventually, even after listening that,
Yeah.
right?
And it comes top down, right? As the
Yeah.
founder and the co-founder relationship, if you exhibit that directly, when you show healthy dissent, when you in a team leadership meeting, you can tell your co-founder, or your co-founder can tell you, I don't think that's the right direction, and here's why, with actual data points. And I can be receptive that like, oh, I never thought about it that way. Actually, you're right. Let's maybe reconsider. That creates an environment where people can see that I'm also open to feedback, because
Yeah.
it's critical in this process. And I always, remind my team, myself, because there's so much ego when you're building something, right? You
Yeah.
want to build the best thing ever, but truly, if you're building something great, it's so much bigger than you, right? If you're
Yeah.
building something great, it should outlast you, right? So I, really, really encourage folks to think about it that way. If it's so great, then you don't even need to be involved and it will continue going.
Yeah. And I hope Symba does outlast you and you build something great out of it. But thank you for joining in, Ava. Like, this was a great conversation. You gave some tactical advice on how to hire A-list players, how to manage them, how to like track their records, and all of those things which you need when you want to scale your business. So thank you for coming in today.
Wonderful. Thanks for having me. I appreciate your insight and for giving me a platform to share our story. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.